So this is our session called What's New? Coaching in the Virtual World 2021. Crazy times that we are in these days. So the big things I wanted to cover today are trainings and timelines, because I want you to kind of know where you're headed and when you're headed in there. Talking a little bit about the different kinds of memberships, because that was kind of confusing. Talking about members area again, and then your team meetings, because they'll look a little bit different in this pandemic, and talking about the spontaneous challenges, and then also the tournament and what you'll be looking forward to doing at the end instead of actually going to West Potomac High School. Instead of having a live tournament, we will be having a virtual tournament. So the first thing I wanted to show you are all of the different offerings that our region are putting out on pretty much on Sundays. We've decided usually at 1 o'clock, and so we had two last week, and then we're skipping next weekend, but then we're going to have one's three Sundays in December, and then we'll have some in January. And we may actually upload some other videos that are not sessions, but you could access on just like little short workshops if you wanted to show them to your team, to kind of give them little workshop trainings without actually providing outside assistance, because it won't be related directly to any problem. And it will be the same Zoom link for all of our trainings. So you can go ahead and just click any of the links that you find on our webpage, and then all of the videos will be uploaded into our own little playlist, I guess it's called, of videos for our training sessions, so that you can access those later on, or if you happen to have to skip one, that's totally fine. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. There's like I think it's probably the Zoom things kind of covering a little bit of the PowerPoint for us. So
yeah.
you can move that. There you go. That's perfect. Okay.
Did I move it?
Yeah, you did. It's great.
I didn't even know I moved it, because on mine it's still showing. So where and when is the tournament? Okay, well, this year there's not a live tournament. And instead our state has decided to do one virtual state tournament so that we can pool all our resources and actually do it well. That's going to be in March 2021. And instead of coming in person, they will submit a video and paperwork to be reviewed and scored by judges. So our timeline, I thought a lot of people want to know, well, when's all this happening? So we've started our trainings, and then starting December 26th, you'll be able to register for the virtual Virginia State Odyssey of the Mind tournament. You'll have until the end of January. Try to do it earlier, because you know how glitches come up and you don't want to be scrambling at the end. And if you have a team, chances are you'll know by mid-January if you're going to be ready to put something together to submit. There will be a state coaches training meeting on December 9th. I'll show you that slide in a little bit. February 6th is another virtual coaches meeting, and that'll be to train coaches on how to upload the videos and paperwork. So those are two pretty important meetings. December 9th, I'm probably covering a lot of the stuff that'll be covered there, but it's not bad to hear it from the horse's mouth from the Virginia PCs. And then February 6th will be the virtual meeting about paperwork submission, which will be pretty important because it's a different world. Although I'm sure I'll be able to encapsulate that information and put it up on the website as well, in case you have to miss that. By late February, early March, all the teams will need to upload their paperwork. Teams will not be required to provide a judge, so take that off your plate. Yay! Don't have to find that extra person who's going to be willing to do that this year. However, if you have judges who are trained, we would love to have them involved again this year. And in fact, that links up, and I'll show you that in a bit. So the state has put together this entire kind of overview. So we have it all planned out as to when judges will be trained on what. There's even dates for when BALSA will be bringing their BALSA structures to a specific location to have them weighed, and there'll be one in Northern Virginia and one in a different place, so that teams can have access to that. So they'll actually be putting the weights on their own structure, and it's important for you to know those dates. Okay, December 9th is the training that's coming up, and that one is from 7 to 9, and that, instead of being on Zoom, will be on GoToMeeting, and that's put out by the Virginia Odyssey of the Mind. So they'll be conducting that one. The costs. People are like, what? How much is it going to cost this year? Well, there's the membership, which we'll get into in a minute. And many of you already have those memberships. So between $100 and $135 for your school or your group that's doing it. Coaches training registration is free this year because all of your trainings are online. There will be a tournament registration fee for the state, but obviously since we're not doing a regional one, you won't have that. So you'll have the Virginia State tournament fee in lieu of that. And we don't know exactly what that will be, unfortunately. And we don't know the cost of the world tournaments, but you do know that as coach, there are certain costs that your team will have as they buy different supplies. And oftentimes teams will pitch in so that you have like a little kitty of money that you can spend. Or sometimes coaches just say, hey, would you go out and purchase this for this week? Or you go out and purchase this for this week. And sometimes it might depend on who's doing what piece of the solution, because you'll be dividing those things up this year. Tournament registration. So there's the in-person team, and then there are the virtual teams. The trick is, if you look at the flow chart, it goes in and out of both of them. But really, we're considering all teams virtual teams, in that they are all submitting virtually their video and paperwork this year. So you are going to be a virtual team, even if you're meeting in person, and that is allowed as long as you are following the CDC guidelines. So remember that as a coach, once you have your membership, you will want to access the members area. And to do that, you'll go to odysseyofthemind.com. You'll click on the teams link at the top on the blue bar. You'll go to the members area. You'll type in your membership number and your zip code that you used to purchase your membership. And you'll want to give this information out to if you're a coach, then you'll want to have this. And so your coordinator should have this. And if they don't, make sure that they get one for your team so that you have access to all of this. Because remember, with this site, you'll be able to access all your forms and your long-term problems, and of course, the program guide, which is super, super important, and the long-term clarifications. One different thing this year is that when you go onto that site, it will immediately ask for your team's intention. You do not need to declare that yet. So just click cancel, and that's fine for now. At some point, you'll want to declare that, and the sooner the better, really, because it helps us prepare for numbers. But you'll simply need to type in the coach name, coach email, problem, and division, which many of you don't know which problem your teams are doing yet, so don't worry about that yet. But you will consider yourself a virtual team, even if you've actually signed up for the traditional membership. The traditional membership is what most schools are getting because it gives them access to all of the problems, 1 through 5, one for each of the divisions that you have, and then unlimited primary. So it's the cost-effective way to go if you have more than one team. However, there are some schools going ahead and handing it off to parents who want to do it, but whose schools have not embraced having Odyssey this year. It's certainly a difficult atmosphere to have Odyssey in, getting kids to join a team when you can't send out a flyer, when you're just sending it out to the PTA listserv. Some schools are uncomfortable with that and just don't want to go that route. So if you are a parent or you know a parent who wants to run an Odyssey team, they are free to do that with something called a virtual membership. That virtual membership, which is $100, allows them to have one team that does one problem. But that team can be ad hoc. So they might have neighbors that live like backyards to them, or somebody who's in their bubble with them. So they all feel safe together and they want to get together. Now they do need to be in the same divisions, but they can work together on a solution without being affiliated with a school organization. So that's the benefit of having that virtual tournament, as they're calling it. Although remember that the traditional membership does not mean you have to perform in person. In some states, they're doing all of that. But in Virginia, we have decided that all teams will be submitting virtually. So we'll be having that virtual tournament. So you are a virtual team who has a traditional membership. Remember too that on that members area, you can access the problem synopses. And this is a great thing to send out early on to your team so that they can start thinking about which problem they want to do. And some of them are very wed to a problem that a type of problem they've done in the past, but we certainly encourage them to explore something new. If they did the vehicle problem last year with baking soda this year is being used in problem 3. So there could be teams that did the vehicle problem last time and they're like, wow, we loved baking soda so much, we're going to try problem 3 this year, because they got so skilled at the use of baking soda that they want to try it again. So there's some really all of the descriptions are really exciting this year, and we hope that your team members will get really jazzed about it and want to dig right in and get started. Remember too that always the synopsis comes with a full problem, so make sure you access those full problems by going to that team area and really start breaking apart the pieces you need to work on. Also, that team area has clarification. And yeah,
that thing is still kind of blocking. Is there a way? I think you might just need to click on the document, like there. Okay, good. Okay, yeah. Oh no, it's like remembering. Oh well, it's fine.
How about that? Hello?
Yeah, that's fine.
Now you can see it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so these are some clarifications that have come up so far. So make sure you're checking, because I imagine there will be a lot of clarifications because it's a whole new ball game this year. So you're going to want to make sure that you are checking up on those. So like, for instance, one big one that's come up is pre-recorded visuals and pre-recorded audio. Those are not allowed in a team performance if they've created it, essentially because they could have taken how many man hours to create that. Whereas if it's a live performance of something that they learned musically, that is something that shows their creativity on the spot. They are allowed to use pre-recorded other things. And then like commercially produced things, they're allowed to. And then virtual backgrounds, we'll get into that a little bit more, but just the clarification that they can use virtual backgrounds, but it must be one that a team member has created. And one of the blocks in your Zoom needs to show the real one. Okay. Where will my team be meeting? Did I get, yeah. Where will my team be meeting? Well, not at school, because most of the schools are closed down now. And if you ask your principal, likely they will say no. Some schools may be able to use their school's playgrounds, so you may ask about that. You might want to meet like at a park or a vacant lot. Just remember to be masked and socially distanced. If you're on video chat, of course, there's 40 minutes free on Zoom. You can always jump off after 40 minutes and jump back on because they allow that. And Discord is an app that CCI, Creative Competitions, is actually pitching because it's free, and it's the one they're going to be using with scores and stuff. And we've been exploring that as a region, and it has a lot of great options for communication between your participants. So it's something that you may want to explore for your team, especially if they're old enough and may want to come on and chat with each other on times when you're not conducting the meeting. Yeah.
Someone suggested in the chat that maybe we have a training session to walk through Discord as a
great idea. Yeah. And I would love to set one of those up for people. So maybe we can set that up in the near future so people can get rolling on that. That's a great idea. Would you jot that down, Geneva? So we make sure we don't forget. And then important things to remember about this year is there needs to be safety and trust among everybody who's involved. So everybody just needs to feel really comfortable about the meetings. If you're coaching an in-person team, and I know a lot of Odyssey coaches have reached out to me because they feel a desperate need for their kids to get together socially. That's when it's not actually on a video chat. So coaches are really trying to figure out how to make that happen. And so one of the new roles that you will be taking on if you are conducting an in-person team is as a health and safety monitor. You're going to want to make sure that your parents all feel safe and know the guidelines for safe participation in the team. You're going to want to have protocols like hand washing and mask wearing. And you're going to want to make sure your space allows for ventilation and distancing. So maybe you have a nice big porch and you can set up chairs that are exactly 6 feet apart, and that's just where the kids are. People have thought about doing parking lots where they have spaces and they skip a space. Of course, it's going to require that the kids be a little bit louder, but if you have outdoor loving kids, there are ways to do this. Supplies, that's going to be tricky because you really shouldn't have them sharing supplies and markers and like transferring between. So you may want to have the kids have individual team toolkits that they bring with them, or you may want to bring things that are wiped down and then they can't actually trade them while it's happening. You want to have some Clorox wipes, extra masks, spots for social distancing that are clear and delineated. If you're coaching a virtual team, your new role will be video chat facilitator and online team builder. You want to make sure communication, just like with the in-person, you're going to need to make sure all parents understand not to provide outside assistance. But it's even more important in the virtual teams because the parents are overhearing what the kids are working on. And inevitably, they are going to be thinking, I've got a great solution to this. But remind them that it's not their problem to solve. So please have them sit on their hands, tape their mouth shut, and let the kids solve the problem. You'll want to start thinking about protocols, about making sure they mute themselves when they come onto the meeting, unmuting themselves. However, I found that if it's a small group and they can be in a space where there's not a lot of background noise, it's nice to have them be able to be unmuted and actually just talk and like a real chat session, but you'll have to kind of gauge that and see if it's working or not. It's up to you. You may want to try with muting first and then gradually go into a situation where certain things are done unmuted. They need to be listening to each other when somebody else is talking, even if it's not a TV. They're actually live people on the other end, and we want them to be respectful of each other. The hand raising icon is a great one to remember to use so that they're taking turns, staying focused in the meetings and giving encouragement, like not just you giving encouragement, but the kids giving encouragement to one another because they are part of a team. We want them to be able to chat effectively. You also will want to set up some way to share documents. And maybe with younger teams, you'll want to just have them just email things to their parents. But for older kids, I would say as young as third on, setting up something like a Google Doc or having things in Discords might be a nice way for them to have access to stuff when you're not around. And being a cheerleader, this is going to be more important than ever. And remember that cheerleading, not cheerleading only the great ideas or the ones that you deem great, but like really letting the team members know that you're so appreciative of their efforts and that we need to be listening to each other and using their names because it's so different when you're on a video. And if you use their name frequently, it does help with engagement, and you want to have that equal participation too. So that by saying their names, it's also going to like remind you like, oh, this person hasn't spoken much. Let's bring them in. Some other tips for coaches: remember to keep an eye on those timelines and help them establish some timelines for when they need to get stuff done so they can get it in on time. Having reflections at the end of their sessions to tell what they feel good about and important next steps. And then assignments and things that they'll have to do at home. You may even want to make sessions somewhat shorter and have assignments be pretty required. It's hard to be online for very long with people because they don't have that physical interaction. So you may want to gauge the amount of time you have meetings, and maybe you'll want to have more meetings, but shorter meetings. And that's easier to do if you're virtual because you won't have to have somebody driving and picking them up. I would encourage too that at your sessions, especially early sessions, you give them some time to watch some Odyssey Virtual World Finals videos. You could watch one together and give an assignment to watch like certain other ones for homework. But you want to give them a sense of what they're headed for because it is so different. So even though many of these kids will have done Odyssey before, it's a whole new world. And if they didn't do Virtual World Finals, they've never been in this situation before. And some of them that did our little Nova East Odyssey exhibition they got a chance to show, but a lot of those videos were live, so they didn't do it on Zoom, and some of them will be doing it on Zoom. It's also nice to see the in-person teams doing it with physical distancing, because you can see that the video is like further back and they're all spaced out. So they need to see how that kind of can work in the end, just so that they've got the right mindset for what they're coming up against in the end. Your spontaneous problems, you are going to want to work on these at every meeting. But this year, something different. All 7 will compete in spontaneous, which they've been kind of thinking about heading towards anyway, because it gives everybody then a chance to participate. And so maybe this will open up doors for everyone doing it in the future. But of course, they're going to do it this way with a virtual tournament, because there's no way to really know that only 5 kids were on it. And plus, it really adds to that team feeling if all 7 can contribute answers. So they will have access to a link closer to the tournament time. And once they click to open that link, they cannot close it, and they must submit their answers within a certain time limit. So you'll want to make sure that you have a time when everybody's together, that they're ready to work on it, and then they'll do their answers. You'll scribe them, actually. So that's a piece of outside assistance that is allowed. And then it will actually automatically submit at the end of the time period. So you'll just want to make sure that you might want to get some practice on that. And that's one of the reasons we've actually set up some Nova East weekly practices, by providing you one spontaneous problem a week that you could work on with your team. All of the spontaneous this year for the virtual tournament will be verbal. A few of the ones that we'll do for our region are verbal hands-on, just because we think it's so fun and we'd hate to move completely away from that. So we will be providing some opportunities for those too. And you can certainly do some hands-on problems. You'll just have to make sure that your team members have whatever materials right in front of them, or maybe bring a baggie if it's an in-person team. So baggie of toothpicks and marshmallows today, and you need 20 marshmallows, and you need 20 toothpicks, and those are your supplies today. So you can do types of things like that and still have a chance to share there. Remember that teamwork is essential to their success, and it really teaches them to think on their feet. So one of the things I want to do is give you a little experience with those spontaneous problems. Sadly, last week I sent out to the coordinators. I thought I had, and I hadn't. I did post it on the website. So week 1 is done. Week 2 is up now, but we're going to do a practice coaches problem. So Geneva, if you would put in the chat the link to the form that they're going to fill out.
Yep, I put it in the chat. So
you did already. Okay.
Yep.
So the problem for coaches is called night noise. Name a sound you wouldn't want to hear in the middle of the night and why. For instance, you might want to say, I wouldn't want to hear the fire alarm because my house might be burning down. I want you to come up with a fun team name, just a name for yourself, so you can recognize your answer. You'll figure out a team name with your team before you submit, and then you'll submit your response. So go ahead and try that.
So feel free, everyone, to go ahead and enter some.
So essentially, this is what we'll be receiving, only we'll have a few more fields that tell like the school name and things and the coach's email. But as you can see, these are from the past trainings that we've done too, but we've got the team names, creative team names for people, and then the responses that they had. So like the terrific turtles, I wouldn't want to hear pattering on the roof because it might mean that I had just missed Santa's visit. Golden fire, wouldn't want to hear breaking glass. And then as a coach, you'd want to encourage them to also add, why wouldn't they want to hear it? That because part, just to complete that problem. So you can see the creative ideas that people came up with. Team fluff, I wouldn't want to hear a loud boom because it might be someone rolling down the stairs to get on an iPad game. Okay, I guess in this era too, there's a lot of that happening, right? So lots of creativity, and what we're going to do as a region then is select some creative ones to put up on our website to share the creativity that's happening throughout our region. And our hope is that you'll revisit our site with your team the next week so that they can look over the ones that we posted on our website. They're going to be allowed to submit three responses, and we'll likely pick one of those to post. And when we post it, we'll post it with the school name and then the silly team name. And that way we don't have to list student names, but they'll know which team at the school they are because they'll have chosen a fun name. Remember, no outside assistance. So I can't reiterate this enough because Odyssey is all about the kids having solving the problem and not the parents. However, this year it's going to be a little different with tech because you are going to be doing some of like the typing in. You'll want them to do, of course, as much as they possibly can do, but like you will be filming their problem or someone else will be. So just know that is within the rules this year. Just make sure you're reading over those rules because there are certain parameters even to that. Once again, where and when it is, CCI is providing interface for uploading. You will be submitting your stuff through a public URL like Google Drive, YouTube, Microsoft. But you're going to make sure that your permissions are correct so that the people who are judging can see it. And as part of that, you'll have the 8-minute video solution and then additional 7 minutes to explain. Remember that the 8 minutes, you have to remember that this will have to be continuous and unaltered. So it's not like creating this video where they'll use iMovie and create this astounding video with all these just little segments. It's actually going to have to be recorded in that 8 minutes and continuous and unaltered. And no subtitles will be allowed. But the 7-minute explanation is added to the 8 minutes to create one video. And that 7-minute explanation is really the part where they're supposed to highlight the pieces they want to really show and how they made them or how they did them. This is instead of the judges questioning, obviously, because judges aren't going to be available just to talk to the teams. They're going to use this video as the chance to find out a little bit more about the solutions to each team problem. This portion may be edited. And included after that long-term video. Then the part about virtual backgrounds, remember that here's a good little example of the virtual backgrounds, and one of those is actually the real background that someone created, and it's possible to tell. And then the others are a snapshot of that, which other kids are using as the virtual background. No membership required this year. However, the file name of the solution must include your membership name and number. So that'll be in lieu of the membership sign. If they wanted to create a membership sign and wanted to make that like as one of their style elements, they certainly could do that. But it's just not required this year because it's just not the same. Filming. Coaches are allowed to film. Someone not on the team, and the team members may act as non-team members may act as stage hands, and you don't have to include any of that video equipment as part of the cost. You will have to say team begin at the beginning, and there does have to be like the setup. So if they're all performing as a group, that setup still is part of their performance, and they will need to move it into there. However, if they're in a Zoom situation, then their props may already be in place. And they can choose any way to end it. They'll, of course, be listing that on their required form. Uploading. So once you've registered, you'll be given access to the fields where you can submit your paperwork and videos. So in addition to the video, you will be submitting all of the forms. You'll upload them into each of the fields. And there's additional optional uploads allowed, up to 10 photos of your solution, and 4 style photos, 1 for each element. Additionally, you can also add your team's script, and this is highly recommended because it really does help the Judges hear and see what you're doing. In fact, it gives a little bit of a leg up, but it also the judges are aware that, you know, they have to go more by the performance than by the script, because they can't just read a script and assume that all happens. The video trumps the script, but the script is a tool that the judges will be able to use. Make sure that whatever permissions you put in your file sharing need to be set so that all judges can access it. That was a huge problem at Virtual World Finals, because they do it on like their Google Docs, and it was set so that only people in their association or whatever could access. So you want to make sure you keep that in your thoughts for when you're uploading. The scores, they'll receive the team will receive and review the scores, similar to in-person, and the head judge will notify the coach or team through email when they're available. Then the team has 48 hours after the email is sent to log in and view the scores and any comments from the judges through the members area. If there are questions, then there's an area for the team to comment back, and then the head judge will respond to that. And like I said before, there is no requirement for you to provide a judge. However, we'd love it if you know a judge who has judged for you maybe for many years. They know the problems. They love Odyssey. You don't think they'll feel uncomfortable using the technology and the submission process. We would love to have people register who have done it before. We're trying to get people who've done it in the past just so that they get a sense of what Odyssey is. However, they will still be trained in their problems and knowing what all that's about. It's helpful if they've had some kind of experience with Odyssey training. So I will be putting that link on the website very soon, because it's already up and running. In fact, if you know someone today and want to give them a ring on the phone, you can direct them to the link and they can already register to help judge. And that judging will happen over a 2-week period in March. So they'll have 2 weeks to do it. They'll get plenty of training on how to judge the problem, and then also how to access and use the different links, because they will be uploading the scores. It's very different in this virtual world. But we would love to have them register if they're comfortable for it. 2 important deadlines to remember are the team registration deadline to participate in the Virginia tournament, which is January 30th, 2021. But please try to do it beforehand, like I said, because of glitches. And then the deadline for uploading video and paperwork is March 5th. But once again, good idea to try to really get it in at the end of February in case there's some glitches. You want to make sure you have that slush time for getting your stuff in. I know people are always working down to the wire, but if you try to submit at the last minute and it doesn't work, how awful would that feel? So we want to make sure that everybody is comfortable and feels like they got their submission in on time. And of course, the most important thing is to have fun. Remember to keep it fun. These are really hard times for all of us. So we want to make sure that we keep this a fun event for kids. We don't want it to be stressful. And if they go through with it and they don't want to submit, that's okay too. Like, this is really, I'm so excited that we're actually doing this, because there are so many things that have been canceled across the country. And this is one thing that hasn't been canceled. It's just been altered. And it makes sense for Odyssey of the Mind to do this because we are a problem-solving organization. So we're trying to figure out a way that we can meet the needs of the kids without sacrificing their health and safety. I'd like to